it seemed as though the Chinese were tolerating blogs who were complaining about France, up until the moment when the complaint might have gotten out of the control of the government. Have you studied this?
Oh yes. If you speak to people in China and take Chinese sociology seriously, which I think we should, in all fairness, they all believe, all the people we know believe, that China will become more and more democratic, and this is only to them a process of how slowly they will adapt to democracy. But the internet itself is forcing through a democratic society, and there's no way they can avoid it in the long run. Meanwhile, they have to. There's certain things that could happen with the internet that would terrify them, and social unrest is number one on that agenda, obviously. And they're really afraid that social unrest could start with the internet. I mean, if you look at Asia, for example, Joseph Estrada was an elected president and was thrown out of office in the Philippines several years ago simply by a mass of people using mobile phones. So obviously, interactive tools are extremely powerful, and the Chinese are not naive. They know that interactivity could really cause a lot of social unrest in China, and that's the one thing they want to avoid at any cost at this stage.
And they also censor text messages, of course. But then again, I mean, one thing in the book that I would like to stress is that it's naive to think that you can actually control what technology does. I mean, technology is going to do what technology is going to do, and as long as you can Skype from Shanghai to Europe, which you can, I mean, there will always be leaks. You will always have leaks, and sooner or later, they call it the Great Firewall of China, it will crumble.
But you will also always have breaks, and I think that's the pragmatic approach to the internet. And obviously, for example, it is quite hard today to find child pornography on the internet if you go onto a computer in France, for example. So you will also have censorship everywhere on the internet. We're not ideologues who are here for political reasons to preach some kind of liberation of the world through the internet. Not at all. Our work is just as much concerned with the problems with the internet and with the new underclass the internet is creating, the new class society the internet is creating, and we're at least as concerned with that, obviously, as we're concerned with the winners, the Netocrats. So China is a perfect example of that. It's not necessarily that China is going to be more like Europe or America. It could very well be that in the next 10 years we'll see America and Europe are taking more censorship measures compared to China, and we'll rather be like China in the future. We don't know yet.
And also one more thing about China that you have to remember is that Europeans and Americans tend to think that these nationalistic tendencies within China is fabricated by the government, when actually the major chunk of Chinese people are extremely nationalist. So, I mean, democracy in China would not mean that they would actually be more European or American automatically.
Just look at Iraq. The Americans thought they could invade Iraq, and then they would have a democratic election, and the Iraqis would choose an American-friendly government, whatever, and instead they voted for the most religious extremists they could get their holds of. You know, so people are not necessarily going the way that people think. And if you would have a multi-party system in China as a state, it might not be the kind of China that we like to trade with the way we do at the moment. We don't know.
No, it could get worse, like Algeria, for example.
And hey, they invaded Tibet. That wasn't a nice thing to do, but America invaded Hawaii 50 years before. So Americans shouldn't really be so nasty to the Chinese, because if you start looking at American history of the last 200 years, they really killed people. They'd be nasty.
Okay, I'm going to open up the floor now, and I'll just show you guys who are watching online, show you the whole room. This is me, I'm Derek Thompson. Thank you for joining us. We're going to, you guys were just saying at the end of the interview with Andrea Sankey that will be shown later on Cross and Katza, you were saying how all communication in the future has to be two-way, not just one-way. I'm the professional journalist here. I'm going to now cede the floor to some of our guests and also to people who are watching on Bamboozer. Can someone ask the first question? Anyone question about the book?
Question about internet?
Sure. Let's go. You can introduce yourself.
Raphael.
So we know who you are. Excellent. And you have a blog, Raphael?
Yes.
And what's the name of the blog, so we can just read it?
leafar.eu.
Okay. And go ahead, your question.
My question was, I do agree on MySpace and Facebook, and I do agree it's the first stage of the social internet. I think social is becoming a market, and my question was like, can you see, which is not like predicting the future, but can you see now new kind of websites who actually embrace the netocratic view of your netocratic view? What would they be?
A small world is the perfect example of somebody taking our theory of netocracy, applying it on the Facebook function, and then trying to create a new community that is more netocratic, and it's excluding people. But I think you see netocratic functions everywhere. If you use your Facebook entry, for example, you can already decide that certain people are not going to be able to see your entry, or know who your friends are, or know who you communicate with. That is exactly what netocratic functions are. And the 9th chapter of the Netocracy book discusses exactly how the flow of information and the increasing amount of information that's bombarding us all the time is really forcing us, in a sort of passive way, to start to choose between people. And we choose who we want to communicate with and who we don't want to communicate with. And that's exactly what we are being forced to decide who's going to be a netocrat and who's going to be a concentrarian. Because a concentrarian person is really not the person who doesn't have an internet connection. That's misunderstanding the concept. A concentrarian person is a person who has an internet connection, because everybody in the world will have internet connections in the future through their mobile phones and nothing else. But who is being constantly turned down. It's a person who's being turned down. Wherever they try to go in, internet works, they don't seem to be socially intelligent enough, or qualified enough, or interesting enough, so that people want to communicate with them, so they're being turned down.
But also on a very much more basic level. I mean, every information today becomes a problem when you Google something and you get 2 million hits. You don't know what to do with it. So every web page that sorts for you or guarantees that this is high quality stuff. We met the movie director this morning who will do a film, a documentary about our thinking, and he's going to call it I Am the Media. And all those pages, I mean, you could call it I Am the Travel Agency. I'm doing my own booking now. Or it sorts out the cheapest or the direct flights and the connected flights and all of that. It's netocratic function.
Okay, so it's more function than website. So it's the ability to...
Yes, at this stage it is. When we wrote the book first and published it in 2000, the most common question we got in any country we traveled to was, can you name netocrats? And we refused to name any netocrats.
You named 2 today.
We did today because now we can. Because
okay.
our prophecy became true. It turned out to be right. We said that we don't yet, in the year 2000, we did not yet have any people who built a public, huge power position only by using virtual communication. We didn't have that in the year 2000. We said it would happen, and people asked us, isn't Bill Gates a netocrat? I said, no, Microsoft are making a physical product that you put in the shop that you have to purchase with coins to buy, to walk out of the shop, and then you put it inside the machine. That's industrialism. Maybe Bill Gates was the last great capitalist or something. His philanthropy is netocratic. He's not giving his money on to his children, he's giving it away to self-help projects in Africa and Asia. That's a very netocratic behavior, interestingly enough.
And which is trend-setting. I mean,
yeah, it is. That's very. So Bill Gates is probably like a transitional figure. What he did before his philanthropy was industrialist. What he's doing now is netocratic. And the Google guys are the first true netocrats that are obviously in a powerful position.
And actually,
there are many others.
The Swedish government is now arguing in the same way as Bill Gates and his foundation does.